Hi everyone, welcome to Creative Cake Design and our monthly live event. This is Cake or Fake, and I am Rachel Tufel, and we're going to be learning how to create these adorable little bunny knitted versions of bunnies. This is actually a project from Creative Crochet Corner. So if you're a knitter and you really want to learn how to knit this adorable little bunny, you can download that. But obviously, we're here for cake. And so today we're going to be recreating this little bunny out of cake and edible options. So I made him, and I'm calling it a him, but I don't know. It's probably a her because she's purple, but it's an it, I suppose. I love, bringing our creations to life and giving them names. So maybe you guys can comment and let me know what name we should call this bunny. As a reminder, you can absolutely interact with me, ask questions, post comments, give feedback. All of that's going to go right into our comment section, and I'll be able to respond to you. So if you have questions, let us know. Otherwise, we're going to dive right in. So download the instructions if you haven't already. There's a link there for you. Feel free to grab this. If for some reason you can't stay live with us the whole time, this is a great way to be able to still create this project without having to be here. We know it's the middle of the afternoon for most places, and sneaking away from work is sometimes challenging. So let's make this adorable little bunny. I want to tell you first just a little bit about kind of the structure behind this, and then we'll get into the fun stuff, which is using some modeling chocolate and some molds and some other fun little tools. Honestly, you don't need a whole lot of knowledge behind cake in order to create this because it's a more simplistic piece, but you're using some fun tools that make our lives a whole lot simpler, like a lot simpler. So let's talk about that for a moment. In your instructions, you'll see I've created an actual structure that supports my cake while I'm working on it, but there's no structure within this cake once it's done. So that's kind of the beauty of this particular cake is there's no structural support on the inside. You could like smash this into somebody's face if you wanted to. Don't recommend it, but you could absolutely squash this. There's no hard structure within the inside of the cake, which is cool because it's a vertical cake. It's got a lot of height. It's got some depth to it. Of course, those fun little ears are showing a little movement, but there's no structural support, which is sometimes challenging to accomplish when you are making cake. So this is a fun one. I'm real excited about it. So when you are stacking up your cake in order to get started, of course, you need cake and you need buttercream. And this particular cake is made of 3 different pieces. So let me show you what we got here. Pull this in a little bit. All right. Let's go ahead and switch to the overhead camera, and you'll see what we got here. All right, so I've got 3 pieces of cake. 2 of the pieces are made from this ball pan, and there's a link in your instructions if you want to grab it. It's the Wilton half ball pan, and it's fairly small. This is like a 3 or 3-inch, I believe. Almost 4, not quite. It's in between 3 and 4. This is a half sphere, and so you're just going to bake those off, and it takes 2 of them. And then just take whatever sheet cake you might have, or if you want to bake off a small round, you can do that. But this is just cut from one of our cookie cutters. This is just a round cookie cutter. And what I did in order to find the right size is I just took a few and, put it right up against our pan and then cut out our piece. And you can do this in a varying height. This one is about 2 inches in height. All of them end up about 2 inches in height. So then this is the base of our cake. So it's 2 round, the half spheres, and then 1 little cylinder in the middle. So that's how easy this is. When you put it together, let me grab the cake real quick. So obviously I have to have a nice firm iced cake in order to decorate it. So what I have here is just a foam core board, and there's a flower nail underneath. So you can see that in the photo on your download. But it's an extra long flower nail, and it allows us then to be able to stack up this cake without it falling over. And if you don't want to use a flower nail, that's totally fine. You can actually just use a dowel or a wooden skewer and poke it down into your styrofoam, and you're good to go. So you want to stack these up, a little bit of buttercream in between, put some icing on the outside as well, ice it smooth, and kind of that's where I am right now. So we've got a fully iced buttercream cake. We've got some modeling chocolate, and that modeling chocolate is rolled out about 1/4 of an inch thick or so. It's not super thick. It's a little less than 1/4 of an inch, but we want this to be a little thicker than what we would normally roll our modeling chocolate to, because we're going to use this amazing knit mold in order to create the texture for our bunny. So this mold is it's absolutely fantastic. I found it on Etsy, and it is a knit mold, which was really hard to find. Oh my gosh, I could not I could not find one. I looked everywhere for knit. I found, or sorry, crochet. I'm saying the wrong word, you guys. I'm sorry. This is crochet. This is a slightly different texture than what knit is. So you can actually find a lot of molds out there for knitting. So all sorts of different patterns of knit, you know, sweater styles, little designs within them. This one is crochet, which has a slightly different look. So if you are, if you're a knitter or a crocheter, well, then of course you absolutely know that the knit and the crochet look has a slightly different appearance. It's not drastic, but it is different. So I was able to find this on Etsy from FPC Sugarcraft. And luckily for all of our viewers, they have actually offered a discount. And so if you type in Creative Cake 20, you are going to get 20% off for the next basically week. So if you are interested in grabbing this mold, we'll pop that information in the comment section so that you can just kind of grab and click on it. But this is a fantastic mold. It's a textured mold. It's an impression mat. There's a couple different names for it. But yeah, I absolutely love it. Okay, so in order to use this, there's a few different ways that you can do it. You can just press this mat onto the object that you are going to be texturing. Because I'm wrapping this cake, I'm actually going to imprint it twice on one piece of modeling chocolate. And the reason for that is I actually want it to be a one long piece rather than sections, because the sections if we were piecing it together, sometimes what happens is the pieces come apart because it's hard to overlap, and making one long continuous piece is a little easier. So what I'm doing is applying some pressure. I start in the middle with my rolling pin, apply pressure, and push out. And what this is doing is it's actually moving the modeling chocolate just a little bit so that it actually like imprints and pushes all of that modeling chocolate up into the mold. If you just kind of push down on it, you will absolutely get some texture, but you might not get that full depth of the pattern itself. And I usually recommend only doing that once each direction. I didn't push firm enough the first time, I could feel. And then slowly pull back. Don't pull the whole thing back. I missed my edges just a little bit. So now I'm just going to push down with my smoother just to ensure that I have a really nice, firm texture that's going to show through. So then when I pull it up, you can see all that texture has really come through. So it's so cool. Like the texture on this is just absolutely fantastic. I love it. They've done a great job with this mold. It's fantastic, you guys. So if you're going to invest a little bit of money in trying to create this knit / crochet texture, I definitely recommend investing a little bit of money into this mold. It is worth it, I promise. All right, and then middle and down. And the good part too is if you're a little off with lining this up or it turns because, you know, I wasn't pushing quite right, it's okay. The texture is still there. This part is going to be probably on the back side, like the way that I will shape this, it will be on the back side. And I know I only need about this much. So I'm okay with the fact that this edge didn't take quite as well. Again, it's just a matter of taking your time, making sure that you've got nice solid pressure. And then I'm just going to follow my mat here. I do have a piece of wax paper under here. I don't think I mentioned that earlier, but the reason for that is so that when we are applying all that pressure, it doesn't get stuck to the surface below, because that is a bit of an issue. Just that sheer amount of pressure. If I was to do that on a surface that was like tacky, or even just a surface that I couldn't bend in order to like lift up this product, then it would be an issue as well. So I know that I need kind of in this range. One easy way is just to kind of roll your bunny, get it all the way around. I'm going to give myself a little extra just in case. Don't get rid of this piece because we might use it. In fact, I know we'll use it. And I'm just going to trim off my edges. Now you have two options here if you want to add a little bit more depth, which of course is always super helpful when we are trying to recreate a cake to look like something else. We actually want to create some additional depth. So what I'm going to do is use a little bit of yellow color. This is just a powdered food color. This one is Roxy Rich, and it looks like it's just a matte yellow. Forsythia. Okay, so you can take either a dust that's slightly darker or slightly lighter than the color of the modeling chocolate that you chose. Your choice. And it doesn't have to be a perfectly even coating of dust here, because remember, we've got some depth with the holes that are created with this particular mat for the crochet appearance. And so, you know, you might have some variegation in sort of the shadows, the way that they're approached. And then also just lighting in general. When we wrap this, we're going to see, you know, a little bit of a change up in color as well. And my recommendation is always to start on the edge and work your way in, and then you can kind of go back and forth. You'll see that first swipe with color tends to be a bit more intense and then, you know, sort of fades away. So start with your color on one edge, work to the other, and just make sure it's fully covered. And again, you can go lighter, you can go darker, whatever works, whatever you've got available to you, really. And the other thing with yarn is sometimes it's got a variegated color to it. So it's not all solid. You know, sometimes there's some other colors woven into it. So depending upon the type of look that you're actually trying to accomplish, you know, you may actually really do well with some lighter and darker areas here. So, you know, don't stress so much over coverage as much as just getting that change up in I guess the texture, the depth is what we're really looking for here. Okay, and if you don't have coloring, don't stress over that. I would just suggest using a little bit of cornstarch. Now, I know that seems like a really weird thing to do, but the cornstarch is white, and it's going to stay in some of those grooves, and that actually would give it the appearance of like the filling that's behind it, that stuffing. So we'll look at this one a little closer. So you can see in between all these stitches, it's stuffed with that white filler. And so getting, a little bit of cornstarch caught in some of those grooves would not be a bad thing here. All right, so I'm going to set my color aside. And what I'm going to do is actually flip this over and peel the wax paper off from behind. And the reason for that is so we don't stretch the modeling chocolate and end up with a really elongated piece that, the texture is no longer showing. That's the part that, we don't want it to stretch and lose that depth and definition. Okay, so moving to our cake, we have, again, this is a buttercream cake. This is a Swiss meringue buttercream, which has a little bit of tackiness to it when it starts to come to room temperature. But if it's ice cold, it doesn't have a whole lot of texture. Like it doesn't end up on my hands, for instance. So I'm just going to spray it with a little bit of water. And that's just to get this modeling chocolate to adhere. All right, this might be easier to see from the front. So let's maybe switch back to our front camera real quick so we can see what we got going. So this is the piece of modeling chocolate. Of course, our cake is behind it. And you want to work from the front to the back, with the exception of the fact that we have that little overlap there. I'm going to put it on the side. So what I'm doing is literally just rolling it. And I'm just checking to see where that is. So now this has become the back seam of my cake. Just like that. I'm just going to give it a little press so that it stays. And then I'm going to wrap this one right up over it, just like that. And then I can see where I have overlapped by looking down at the top. You can also feel that overlap. I'm just going to kind of generally, cut that so that I can get in here a little bit more and let you guys see what's happening. Okay, so what I'm doing is I got that first piece away. I'm actually going to just trim a little further in and take away that underside piece. So just trimming this guy away. Pull. And now this one will just fit right up against it. And so that way we don't have much of a seam. And where we do have a seam, we can just gently press and it overlaps right over that seam. And so you don't even know that we really have a connection point there. This is the back of the bunny, so it doesn't really matter, but at least, that's hidden for the most part. Okay, and then this underside here, I'm literally just going to take my knife and turn it just ever so slightly, and that's going to make the modeling chocolate turn under and give us that like really cool rounded bottom, just like our fluffy bunnies have. So just get down, make sure it's really tucked in and under. And that's just simply using my knife. I'm not trimming anything away. I'm just pushing. And then again, when I get to the front here, there's a couple fun things that you can do. So let me just wipe my hand for a moment. Okay. I've got yellow powder on my hand, so just be careful with what you're touching next. But the cool thing about this particular bunny is it actually, when you tie it off, it's tied off towards the back, and it creates these little like folds within the fabric. So that's what I'm going to do with this as well. So I'm going to basically pull this towards the back. You just use your fingers to push in. It's almost like when we're wrapping presents, right? You know, we're just kind of folding that paper together, getting it to, you know, go where we want it. In this case, our modeling chocolate is going to kind of stretch and twist and turn a little bit, which is good. We want that to happen. But we want it to meet up right at the back, kind of the back edge. And that's where his ears are going to attach to. So, you know, just keep working it until you get those folds just how you want it. And then the great part about modeling chocolate is you can just squeeze it together just like that. And you're done. Like that's the beauty. We don't have to tie it off like all of our knitting and crochet friends have to. And then I'm just going to use a knife very carefully to get the rest of that excess out. So we've got this really cool rounded texture with our knit, which is great. Now, if you've manipulated this too much and it's really just not as pretty as you would like, you can come back with your knit mold, which is here, and ever so gently just press. And what happens is you go from having that smooth texture to having that knitted crocheted texture again. So absolutely. Okay, could you use a different type of buttercream or does it have to be Swiss? So you can use whatever type of buttercream that you would like. My preference is Swiss because Swiss is made basically with a meringue and butter. And that butter gets really firm. And so the structure of your cake maintains itself a little bit better simply because when you put it in the refrigerator, the butter hardens right back to a very firm structure. If you use American buttercream, which is absolutely doable, my recommendation is to not use shortening. Use solid butter. I know most American buttercream recipes actually have a mixture of shortening and butter, and that's to stabilize it so that it doesn't melt in the heat. So if you're going to use an American style buttercream, I just recommend either eliminating the shortening altogether, which is the best recommendation, or if you need to stabilize it, you can just decrease the amount of shortening, increase the amount of butter, and then use a little bit of powdered egg white. So a meringue powder, not necessarily egg white, but powdered meringue. And that will actually help stabilize it a little bit. So the only downside is just that shortening doesn't firm up fully. It's not that it doesn't firm up at all. It just doesn't firm up as solid. So most of the time you have to chill it a little longer and it's not quite as effective, but totally usable. Okay, so next we've got sort of our shape. If we switch to, let's switch to the overcam. We'll show you kind of what happens at the top here. It just, you fold it together. And again, if you've been too heavy-handed, just use your mat on the top and gently apply some pressure. And it will increase the texture, and then you can kind of come back with your hands and just shape it again. You don't want to manipulate this a whole lot simply because you'll get rid of the texture. So just be mindful of that when you're working with your textured mats. And this goes for any textured mat. If you manipulate this too much, you're going to start to lose that depth and texture. Okay, so the next part is going to be our ears. And that's why we have that extra piece here. And I'm going to cut out the shape of an ear, and then I'll show you a little trick. And, this doesn't have to be an exact ear, but if you want it to be, this is pretty darn close. And I'm going to cut out 2 of them. Obviously, you would flip this, but you'll see why I'm not flipping it in a moment here. All right. What other questions do you have? That was a great question from Julie. Thank you, Julie. Okay, so now we have 2 pieces of our modeling chocolate. There's a little bit of texture on the tips of these, but not a whole lot. What we're going to do is actually sandwich it between our mold here. This is what I love about this mat. It's very flexible. I'm going to go ahead and just apply light pressure. This is going to give us that texture on both sides. So it's going to look as though it actually was crocheted, right? Because you have the texture now on both sides, which is important because if we have a piece that, which way was this? This way. Got it. Okay. If we have a piece like our bunny that ear is vertical and it's knitted, so or crocheted, so you need to make sure that that texture is really on both sides. But don't apply too much pressure because otherwise you get really thin and then you don't have the structure that you need in order to create the vertical ears. So I'm going to imprint this one more time. That's the other thing too. If you need to go back, you can just get it stuck in one of those grooves. It's not going to be an exact match, but pretty close. Okay. There we go. That's much better. Okay, so now I have 2 ears, and I'm actually going to take this little tool. It's a shell tool. It just has lots of lines in it. And all I want to do is just soften that edge a little bit. We're basically just thinning it out, and then we're going to curl it over as if, so if we look at this, this actually has a special border on it. And so I don't want to leave just a raw edge. I actually want it to look somewhat like it's been crocheted. So I'm just doing this with the shell tool. If you don't have a shell tool, even just a fork, overlap your fork a few times. And it would just go right on the edge. And then we're just going to turn that, that thinned edge is just going to get turned over. And all that's going to do, again, is just create a nice edge. So if you look at one ear compared to the other, one that was thinned and one that was not, this just has a hard cut edge. So you just want to, use your fingers to manipulate that thin edge you've just created and just roll it over. And then I'll show you what to do on the back side too. But roll all of this. And honestly, you guys, this could be any animal, any shape. This doesn't have to be just a bunny, obviously. There are all sorts of different types of animals that are made using this particular crochet method. I'm not going to say it right. I hate to even give it a try. It's like amiguri, something like that. Yep, don't know how to say it, but it's similar. Similar to that concept, which basically just means you are crocheting an animal or an object. It's not, and I do believe it's a circular technique, if I recall correctly, but I definitely am not a crocheter or a knitter. I do not live in the yarn world, so pardon my lack of terminology when it comes to fabric, basically. I definitely grew up in a family who, so I have an aunt who likes to crochet, but I have a sister and many other aunts who do a lot of knitting. So I definitely have been exposed to it, and I've given it a try, but it's not really my thing. I don't know. I definitely love creating things with my hands, but for whatever reason, fabric it's not as sweet as sugar. Okay, so once we have our 2 ears kind of tucked and turned, I'm just going to cut them so they're approximately the same length. This isn't a total necessity, but it kind of gives you a good starting point. All we're going to do is, and you could use either side here. Oh, I forgot to crimp this side. On this side, I'm just using that tool just to kind of seam it almost. So the front side, has that really pretty edge. The back side is not quite as pretty, but it's definitely still looks like knit and crochet. So what we want to do at this point is just crimp our ear. So we're just folding it in half, and then I actually like to fold it back one more time. And so you kind of get this like V shape piece. And that just gives me a little bit of a base to kind of hold on to. So first fold it in half, then take those outer edges and fold it back. And so it kind of looks like an M, but you know, that big V in the middle, just like that. And then let's bring our cake in. And this is where we get to have a little fun. So again, that crease is towards the back of the bunny. And I get to have a little bit of fun with how we shape these. So the next thing that I like to do is actually open up a little slot for our ear to kind of tuck into. And it doesn't necessarily have to go in there, but it's helpful to kind of stabilize it by pushing the excess right into that little hole that you just made. It just gives a little bit more of a grounding effect, you know. It allows us to kind of push without getting rid of the texture. So don't be afraid to just kind of make a little divot inside there and fold your ear. Maybe one's a little more upright, maybe one is a little bit more floppy. But I'm just going to press all of that right down into that little hole. Again, it's just for structure more than anything, a little added support. We don't really need anything like, you know, water or anything like that to hold it. They're pretty good. That modeling chocolate is usually pretty strong and holds well. If you need, you know, just a little bit of texture, if you've you know, kind of manipulated it a little too much and it's losing its crochet, just come in with that shell tip. Again, it creates texture that's similar to the crochet effect without actually being crochet, right? Okay, so maybe back to front cam so you can see how adorable this little guy is. It's so cute. It's come together so well already. Now, in your instructions, what I have done is I've cut some strips and made little balls for his arms and legs, and I just didn't really care for how that came out. It didn't quite look as great as I thought it would, I suppose. So I, of course, changed my process because that's what I do. I try something, and then the next time I do something a little different because I didn't quite like it, or oftentimes, frankly, I'm just bored and want to do something different, and so I try to think of a different way to do it. That's really what it comes down to. But all I'm doing is making a little ball. This is probably 3/4 of an inch. Yes, 3/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to roll it into a little ball first. And I've just kind of cut all of them from the same little log so I would get about the same amount of modeling chocolate here. But no big deal if they're perfectly even or not, doesn't matter, just like that. And then I have a circle. This one is about 1.25 inches. And I'm actually going to cut out a piece of the reserved crochet material. And right on our surface here, we're just going to use our fingers to push down a little bit so that it looks a little bit more realistic compared to that ball that I made before. And the other option you have is, again, use your mat to your advantage. You know, when we put our fingers directly on this surface, it leaves an imprint of our fingers. And so we actually don't want that. I'm going to go slightly bigger with that. We actually don't want that to be the case. And so use your mat to, you know, just kind of create that beautiful texture without losing it as we as we are working with it. Nope, I think I like the smaller one, you guys. See? I just am constantly changing my mind on things. And now with this one, you might need a little bit of water to adhere. Let me take a peek and see where we're going to put that guy. Right there. And then obviously you just want to do that again. So we've got 4 little legs, 2 arms. I don't know. What do we got? 2 arms and 2 legs, or I don't know what bunnies have. Do they have just 4 legs? I'm not sure. I guess I should study my animal anatomy here too. Does anybody know if bunnies have 4 legs or if they have 2 arms and 2 legs? I would guess it'd be 4 legs. Okay, now I'm just totally off tangent here. Okay, so again, just creating that beautiful knitted texture. Slide your knife underneath there to get it, or just use your wax paper again. Either way. And I am sort of thinning out that bottom edge as well, so that when I come back with my round cutter, this little guy, oh, or this one, I can't remember now. No, we went with the smaller one. Oh my goodness. Just make sure that it's thinned out around that bottom edge. Otherwise you end up with that like really soft edge that doesn't really have a whole lot of texture left to it. So, okay. Almost there. We'll get all these on and move on to the next. Okay, so little water. And take a peek at your bunny with the placement. I'll show you how to finish that off in just a second. All right. So with the edges of these legs, I'm just going to call them legs. Again, just come back to your shell tool and apply a little bit of pressure just around that edge, almost as if it's just like a little seam. And that's going to do 2 things for you. It's going to finish off that edge, that sort of smoothed edge where we cut it, but it's also going to attach the leg to the bunny itself. So, you know, it's kind of serving 2 purposes here. But I was playing with this after I did the original version, obviously, and I was like, I just don't like the way those legs came together. And so I played a little bit to see what I wanted to do with it. And this is, to me, this came out as looking a little bit more realistic compared to just rolling up a ball and kind of attaching it. So just so you know, that's the process that we have a tendency to go through as sugar artists. We are kind of constantly changing the way we do things, trying to figure something out, doing something a little bit differently, or, you know, playing around. Most of what we do is experimental, no joke. Like, I want to compare these 2 just because I really do think there's a big difference between the 2. Obviously, these are a little bit larger, but I just feel like they attach more seamlessly. They have slightly better, that seam is just flawless. It looks so much better to me. Okay, so if you have taken off any of your color, or I know this one was already colored, but as you manipulate it and play with it, sometimes that color starts to come off. So put a little more color on there anywhere you need to. I don't think I actually colored the ears very well, so that's an option too. For eyes. Now, you can do what I do and find your favorite sprinkle set and pop out 2 black circles. These are great. They're Sweet Apolita. I love their combinations. They have such a great selection of sprinkles. But you're just going to go with 2. If you don't have, I'm going to turn this so I can actually look. If you don't have sprinkles, don't stress. You can always just roll up modeling chocolate and black modeling chocolate, and you're good to go. So you don't have to use a sprinkle if you don't want to. I sort of stuck those where I didn't want them, so not looking perfect there, but you get the idea. You can roll up black modeling chocolate and use that. You can use other types of candy if you don't have sprinkles around that are black like this. The other option you have, which I really love, is if you use just black modeling chocolate or a chocolate chip even, they tend to have a matte appearance. And so I like to have that like shiny appearance that our sprinkles get. Use a little bit of corn syrup. Doesn't take much, just a little bit of corn syrup, and put it right onto your chocolate chip or some rolled up modeling chocolate, and you get that same shiny kind of button look. So it's really fun. Okay, if you guys don't know what this is, it's an extruder. It's typically for clay, although we use it in the sugar world quite often. And I just have a single tiny little thread there. We're gonna make his nose. And in order to do that, we just need, to overlap this string a little bit. So you don't need much. But we take the string, straighten it out, and then you're going to overlap it so that you have a few extra. Oh boy. My fingers are warm, so the modeling chocolate is like angry with me. Okay, let me do this slightly differently just so I can get them all lined up. I try really hard not to touch the modeling chocolate where I'm going to use, in that middle part. Hopefully you guys can see this. Oh, let's go to overhead cam so you can see what's going on here. And then once you have a few in line, then you can just trim off one edge. Just like that. And if you have hot hands, you can absolutely use them to your advantage. I'm just going to wet them just for a moment. Sorry. Use your hot hands to your advantage, and you can crimp these together and just make sure that they're nice and straight, just like that. And then if you roll it, then they're all together now. You don't have to worry about it falling apart. And I'm just going to trim one edge. And then on our bunny, we just want to use, I have this tiny little tool. This is actually a sewing tool, but I love it because it's got a nice little point, but it's flat. It's not round. And I am going to poke my cake where I want his nose, kind of in the middle there. And then when you take the strand, you're actually going to push the strand into the hole first and then loop it to the other side. I hope you guys can see this. And then, if you need to, of course, you can crimp closer or just, give yourself a little guide and then pull the rest away. So now it looks as if it's been inserted right into the stitching of our crochet. Okay, and then let me show you how to get this guy off so you can see exactly what he looks like, even from the underside. I'm just going to take my knife, slide it in until I hit that flower nail. That's going to release the buttercream and the modeling chocolate. And then you can pick them right up. See, look, cake. And we'll get rid of this guy. All right. So that is how you make, amigurumi. I am so sorry, I don't know how to say that. But that's how you can create a really cute little bunny. He's quick and easy, I promise. We have been live for 45 minutes, and the only thing I didn't do, well, of course, was bake the cake live, but I didn't ice them. But really pulling him together from an icing perspective, because we're using the rounded cakes from the start, there's no carving, which is super great, makes that easy so that anyone, even the kiddos, can do this project. But those cakes are rounded, and so really all you're doing is putting icing in between, stacking it up, and giving a nice little coat of icing around the outside. The rest of it can be done fairly quickly. So aside from maybe taking an hour to bake the cake, piecing this cake together shouldn't take you longer than an hour. Everything is really straightforward. I think the hardest part is just getting your hands on this mold, because it's like the only crochet mold on the market that I have found. So kudos, thank you so much. Remember, check the comment section. The Sugar Craft Company who sells this on Etsy has a limited time offer for 20% off the mold, which is a steal. It's normally $20, which is a great price for such an amazing mold. Not to get on a soapbox about molds, but seriously, pick this one up because it is super versatile. Even if you're not going to use it for a crocheted bunny, maybe a different animal, this texture just in general is a fantastic texture. And if you don't push super hard to get the full crochet texture, you can get little dots, kind of like a basketball texture. So there's lots of great uses for this particular mold. But if you think you might use it, snag it now while you can get a 20% off discount. Otherwise, that's not going to last very long. Check the comment section for the link and for the code and the dates, and don't miss out on that. And then, of course, huge thank you to Satin Ice, who always provides our modeling chocolates and colors and fondants and markers and some of the other things. But the modeling chocolate really is the key to this project. Aside from having the amazing crochet texture, modeling chocolate is super important because it's going to give us the structure to hold vertically. No structure in this whatsoever. So no pretzels, no spaghetti, no wooden dowels or straws or candy sticks or anything like that. This is how modeling chocolate works. It holds up lovely. It has a great consistency that takes on texture, but still has stability to do this, which fondant can't do unless you alter it. So if you are wanting to use fondant, you can, but why not use the modeling chocolate that tastes great, because it tastes like white chocolate, and it has the structure we need already, so you don't have to do an extra step. So thank you again oh my gosh, my mind is skipping me out on the Sugar Craft Company. It's like, I'm not going to guess. But it's in the comment section. It's on Etsy, and I highly recommend them. Again, thank you to Satin Ice as well. And these bunnies are literally the cutest. Thank you, Julie. If you guys have other suggestions of things you would like to see us create, please do leave that in the comment section. We're always looking for projects that will entice you and really, get you guys excited about making cake, because sugar is one of those things that is super fun to work with. I love not only creating them, but I love gifting them, because it makes people feel super special when you've handmade something for them. And certainly to hand make an adorable little bunny, my goodness, the options are endless. I can see pigs and puppies and all sorts of little things coming from this, but it's a really fun project. And like I said, simple enough that the very early intro to baking can get you there. The kiddos can join in and have a lot of fun. And so this is just a great project overall. Again, if you haven't downloaded your information, please do leave comments so that we can respond to you and let you give you the answer, let you know how this works. And if you've missed our previous Cake or Faith, I'd encourage you to go back and check those out. We've made wooden cake knives, and we've also made, well, one of my favorites was the cake knife. But go back, check them out. We've done a couple now. See if you can figure out which one is the real one and which one is the fake one. And of course, as always, have fun, be creative, and enjoy your cake.